Okay, so in today's training, we're going to talk about the signature story map. This is all about you being able to share your content of your own life experiences and those defining moments in your life that actually help you to overcome the problems that you now help your clients solve. You see, one of the challenges is that as a coach, we've been taught that it's not about us, it's all about the client. And I find that to be not very helpful to have that belief, because what it does is it stops you then from taking from those experiences of your overcoming and helping your clients. Now, obviously, we're doing this in a way that's going to ensure that they still see the relevance for them and it's all about them. But there's so much that you have in your life experiences that you can tell stories about and help your clients to overcome. All right, so let's have a look at some of the problems. So this is, part of the work we do in the Growth Accelerator, and this is particularly around the area of content. So when coaches share their story, there's three things that you've got to consider. The first thing is that the stories must engage. Secondly, they've got to entice. So many other things that people could be listening to in this busy world. And then the whole purpose of doing it is to be able to enlist them. So, we're talking about this in the context of your marketing and being able to use your stories so that people are relating to you and therefore want to work with you. But the big frustrations and challenges that I see is that a lot of coaches, when they share stories, they're pointless. It's just, spruiking on a story, it's a dialogue, but it doesn't engage the listener. So when you learn to do this well, and I'm going to show you how to do that in this training, then your stories go from being pointless to being relevant. By the way, if you want to copy this worksheet that I'm using and you haven't got that yet, just comment worksheet below this if you're watching it in the live. If you're watching it on my website or in my YouTube channel, then there's either a link or a button down below and you can get access straight away. All right, so when we talk about enticing people to want to listen, one of the challenges that I see here is that stories are all about facts. So it's actually just telling people about the story. And that's not what entices people. That's not what gets them to lean in. What we've got to be able to do is engage with their feelings so that it's an emotive experience that they go through. When we come to enlisting listeners, potential clients, using our stories, a lot of coaches just inform. So the whole purpose of the story is just to inform them of what happened and what the outcome was and how that can help them and what have you. But what we want to do so that we can create from our story compelling copy and an experience that people go, hey, I want to know more about that, and I want you to help me go through similar problems, is we go from informing to inspiring. By doing this, what we're going to do is we're going to get people who'll take the next step. So they'll go beyond just listening to a story. They'll actually see themselves in the story, and they'll see the core premise of the story, and they'll go, you know what, that relates to me. I put a story, a very vulnerable story in the group this week, in the thread of getting people ready for this live, about me in my childhood and what I found out then when I was 15 about an experience there. And it's been absolutely amazing, the amount of interaction that I've had, and people sending me private messages. And, I just had a message from someone who I went to school with back in those days, who was really touched by the story. And she said to me, I couldn't have told that you had those issues going on internally, right? And the story was really impacting to her and to many other people. All right, so what I want to do right now is just give you 3 key ideas that you need to understand when you are preparing your story, when you're getting your story and turning it into something that's palatable and usable. So the first thing is we need to keep it relevant, right? It needs to be relevant. It needs to be something that they can go, yeah, I see the point of that. So if it's a story that is about sharpening an axe, if it's a story about how you're honing your skills, if that's what you're leading people to do, then people are going to be able to draw that visual picture. So your story needs to become a metaphor for what it is, the point that you're trying to make as a part of your enticing them to want to come and work with you. So it's got to be relevant. If it's not relevant to them, what do? They just scroll on, they don't listen, they have no idea what it means to them, and it becomes just noise. The second thing is the story's got to draw them in. It's like watching a great movie where that hook at the start or the first scene really draws you in. And the more and more you get into the story and you see yourself as a part of that story, the more you just need to keep your eyes on it. All right? So that's what our signature stories need to be. We need to be able to engage people, draw them into the story, and then keep them there so that they don't just scroll on and listen to the next story. And the third thing we need to do is help them to connect the dots. So this is the story, this is what it relates to, this is the core premise, this is the big idea behind it, and help them through that story to join the dots to their own story. You see, your story is not about you, even though it is, right? Your story is about them. And a great storyteller allows the person that they're telling the story to come on into the story. So the story content might be different. But what a great storyteller does is helps the listener to put the content into their own story, to be able to draw conclusions between the story that they're hearing about you to their own life. And over the last couple of days, I've been getting a lot of people commenting and sending me messages about that, how their story was different, the content, but the overall was the same. So to do that, I've given you a signature story map, a template that you can go through to sort your story from, just being a story to putting it into how it needs to be so that people can engage with it, so that it enlists them, right? So, by the way, if you haven't got a copy of that worksheet yet, then just put worksheet below. If you're watching this on my page or on YouTube, then down below there's a button or a link so that you can get it. All right. So let's just have a look at the 3 components of the story. So you may have heard of the hero's journey. And what I have done here is taken 3 components of that: the call, the struggle, and the victory. So 3 components of the call being when you were first called to do what you're doing now. It was that defining moment. The struggle's all about the struggle you went through since making that decision and going through what it is that you were going through. And the victory is coming out the other side with the wins and the lessons that you now have that you can help others with. So for me, I work with coaches who are building their coaching practice. And therefore, I can talk about when I felt led to get into coaching. I can talk about the struggles that I've overcome and the challenges that I went through. And by the way, there were plenty. And I can talk about the victories and what I've learnt out of that struggle. And I can use that story or other stories, depending on the context, to draw them in and for them to make a conclusion that this person is like me. They've gone through a similar journey and they've actually come out to where I want to be. And that's really what it is that you want to do. You want to help them to understand that it's okay to be going through what it is they're going through, because they can come out the other side just like you. And in fact, they've then drawn a conclusion that you've got the answers for what they need to do next, and they get in your program. So as I said, you've got a workbook here you can go through. The signature story map is all, pardon the pun, mapped out there for you, where you go through an outline, a narrative, and bring it into some context, and then get into the actual solutions to the problems that come out of the story and come out with a script, so that you can not so much read a script, but you've got an outline of what your story is about, so that it does, in fact, entice people to want to take that next step with you. So there you have it. If you haven't got this workbook, then just put workbook down below, or if you're on YouTube or my page, you can get it by clicking the button or link down underneath this video. And if you want to learn more about how to take this story map and craft your signature stories so that you can use it in compelling marketing copy, so you can use it when you are speaking, when you are working with people running webinars, whatever it is that you're doing, then all you need to do is just whatever it is, where it is you're listening to me, just connect and drop me a message, drop me a note and say, hey, I'd like to know more about how I can do that. And I'll tell you more about our growth accelerator and how we work with coaches to go deeper into things like this and to allow them to grow their practice so that they can have more influence, grow their income, and make the impact that they wanted to make as a coach. So go ahead and just let me know if you need some help. Let me know if you need the workbook, and I look forward to seeing you again in next week's training. Bye for now.